Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's Lisa Norell, and it is Friday, October 16th. Welcome to the Mindful Marketer live stream. It is our final live stream of the month. I can't believe where October has gone. I don't know about you guys. My head's been kind of swirling around lately about other things, like, I don't know, the pandemic, election season, wildfires. There are a few other things. But what we're going to do today is we're going to bring you some fresh ideas on ways you can add some life and some love to your customers in ways that maybe you've never imagined before. As you know, I'm Lisa Norell. I've been speaking and advising and working with marketing leaders and CEOs for over 24 years now. And we are going to be concurrently streaming this across LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and YouTube. So I'm really glad you're here today. Remember too, we love to hear from you. We get lots of comments, we get lots of questions throughout this live stream, which will be going on today for about 40 minutes. And before I introduce our wonderful guest and my friend, Robbie Baxter, to talk with us today about customers for life through mindful membership models, let me just give you a little bit of background of why I thought this was such a relevant conversation today. Looking at research from Zora, they did a 2018 subscription index report that claims that subscription businesses are growing revenues about five times more quickly than S&P 500 company revenues and United States retail sales. Can you imagine that? 5 times. So if you are one of the 4 people remaining on the planet who have not yet considered this idea of a subscription business model or a membership model for your organization, now might be the time. My clients right now, and I wonder if you're seeing this also in your organizations, but my clients are very open-minded about fresh new ideas to work with me and new ideas for them to generate new revenues and new relationships with their customers. So before we come out of this pandemic, I really encourage you to look at how can you make a transition into a membership model or add it to your existing business model. So let's talk to my special guest, Robbie Baxter. Robbie is a graduate of Harvard and Stanford and has spent the last 2 decades as a marketing strategist and founder of Peninsula Strategies in the San Francisco Bay Area. Now, let me tell you, Robbie literally wrote the books, not the book, but the books on how to harness the power and the promise of the membership economy. So I just spent several days poring over the Forever transaction, and I've got, like, as you can see, it's full of notes because Robbie is not just a visionary, but she's able to break things down into bite-sized chunks and into how-to guides that all of us can use to determine whether this is right for us. Robbie's passions are first of all, she's socially active. She's been working hard to get people out to vote because, we are just a couple of weeks now from some pretty important times here in the US with Election Day around the corner. I also heard she's very good at cooking fancy breakfasts and loves spending time with her family and her number one favorite Forever transaction, her husband. So, Robbie, let me welcome you to the Friday Mindful Marketer live stream.
Yeah, what a great way to spend a Friday with my friend Lisa.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. I'm holding up the Eastern United States. You're holding up the Western US today. How safe have you been from some of the stories I've been hearing about the wildfires?
Yeah, well, so far, knock wood, I've been safe. I think where I live on the mid peninsula between San Francisco and San Jose, I think we're more at risk of, following into the bay than of the fires. But we've had fires on all 4 sides, and we're just coming into fire season right now. So interestingly, the fires of August and September we're pre-season. This is kind of the big time when we're most at risk for fires. But there's a little bit of a lull right now, and fingers crossed that we get
Fingers
through
crossed.
October.
Yeah, it's been a busy October. You know me, I like to define things when we start off. Why don't you define for us what you mean when you and I got together and said, let's talk about mindful membership models. What are they, and how do you frame those for your clients and audience?
Yeah, well, I don't think you can have a membership model without being mindful, because it's really about kind of, for the organization, really focusing on the relationship with the customer. And I mean that in a subscription relationship, if you want to enjoy the benefits of subscription revenue, you have to have the underpinnings of a real relationship, a trusted relationship. The reason that people are willing to pay you on a regular basis and give you access to their credit card is because they trust you. And I think it takes a mindful marketer to not just build the model, but continue to champion the culture that is going to go relationship first rather than product first or short-term revenue first.
I love that in your book too. You talk about that, about, hey, don't embark on this if all you care about is closing the next deal this quarter. But, you know, both of us are provocateurs, and what I'm about to say may upset some people, but let's come to terms with this. I mean, in the US economy, it is systemically broken because so many companies are motivated to only look at short-term revenues. And everybody,
Yeah.
you know, and salespeople, and I was a salespeople for 14 years before I started my business. I mean, we were motivated and we were paid and incentivized to close the deal every month or every quarter. So how do you put on your armor every time you're talking to a client who's got these opposing forces to have to manage?
Yeah. I think the first thing is to just call it out and to say that there are going to be times, we all like, there isn't anybody, I'm sure there's nobody who would say, I'm not customer centric. I don't care about my customer, right? We all care about our customers. But the question is, when you have to make a choice between short-term revenue and the long-term well-being of that particular customer, which way do you go? So if that means if you can close a deal, but you know that that customer probably doesn't need everything that they paid for, do you do it? Right? And that is a very real question that you have. A lot of times the customer says, tell me what I need. Right? And do you say, well, actually, you don't need all the bells and whistles. I think option A is fine for you. Or do you say, great, I'm going to exceed quota? And, another example, that's a salesperson example. And another example would be, if you want to hit your quarterly number, why don't you add a late fee? And, you'll get some extra money, but it's really it doesn't add any great value for the customer. It just adds more cost. So I think calling that out and saying you're going to have these hard moments where you have to make this choice. And if you want your golden goose to keep laying golden eggs, you have to prioritize the health of the goose every time.
And that means if you are looking for a long-term relationship with that customer, you have to create what you coined the forever promise. Now, we may hear that term when we're in a serious partnership or relationship, but how does
Right.
how does it translate over into the forever promise with a customer? And how do you frame that when you're embarking upon a membership business case or a membership model launch?
So the forever promise is the promise that the organization makes to the customer that goes something like this. As long as you pay me monthly, I will continue to do everything I can to provide you with this benefit or help you on this journey or help you solve this problem or achieve this goal on an ongoing basis. So the promise is not about your product. It's not even about your mission. It's about how you're going to help your customer on their journey for the long term.
Yes. So you're other centered. which is a little different than, we had a live stream a few months ago on mindfulness, where mindfulness is really observing your own breath, observing your own behaviors. But you're saying, no, this is focused on the other, focused on the customer and making that promise. So how much does it overlap with what the company's mission is? Because,
Yeah.
just to avoid some confusion or mixing of terminology here.
So a lot of companies have a mission. There's sort of two issues, I think, where it's different from your corporate mission or your brand promise. One of them is that, as you said, it's focused on the customer's mission rather than on your mission. So a lot of times the product that your company sells is only one of the many tools that your customer is using to achieve their goal. So if I want to look professional, so I put on some lip gloss, right? That lip gloss is a tiny part of my journey to looking professional, right? And that lip gloss company needs to understand, did I buy the lip gloss because I love makeup or because I'm trying to look a certain way for a certain experience? Those are very different people with very different goals and journeys. And so I think the first mistake that a lot of companies make is they focus on that product and, instead of focusing on the customer mission. And the other one is a lot of times a company has a mission which is not the same as the customer's mission. So for example, this is true in the world of, let's say, news, where a lot of serious news organizations are about, providing trustworthy truth, right? And some people want that. They want the world to be free for truth. It's a mission, right? I support the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or what have you, because I want the world to hear an unbiased point of view, a well-supported with data point of view. Then there's a separate thing, which is I like getting my newspaper delivered to my driveway, right? And knowing the difference, that there are some people that just want the newspaper in their driveway, and there are other people that want to make sure that there are journalistic watchdogs out there. And understanding the difference between those. I think that gets in the way of a lot of mission-driven organizations, newspapers, arts organizations, professional societies, where they struggle between, the mission, which is more altruistic, and their business, which is, in many cases why their, customers versus supporters are coming to them.
Yes, so it's really a holistic view of all of those touch points that matter.
Yeah.
Yes, and speaking of which, I really recently rediscovered BBC World News and World Service News, and I'm listening to it a lot more now, just because they don't editorialize to the degree that we're seeing on MSNBC or CNN or Fox or in some of the other outlets. It is very refreshing. But I wouldn't say that they have really optimized or harnessed any membership model or any membership or subscription opportunity. Maybe because they're government run or they get so much subsidy money from government. But can you imagine? I mean, I'm sitting here. I wish I could advise their CMO right now, because I'd say, you have such great journalists. You go create some kind of subscription business.
Yeah, well, it's a very hot topic in the UK right now, with the BBC, because their new CEO has said he doesn't want to go the subscription route. He really wants it to continue to be available to all Brits. That's their goal. It's a different kind of model. But it is interesting that you have to be really clear on what you're trying to do and who you're trying to serve. And if your number one goal is we want to maximize revenue, or your number one goal is we want to maximize our likelihood of achieving our mission, they're not always the same.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there. And I want to remind people too to let us know where you're joining us from. We do have Shauna joining us from Northern Virginia right now over on the Facebook stream. And I'm waiting here for a few comments, because I know a few people were definitely planning on participating today. I also I'm a big fan of metrics, and you dedicated a lot of time and energy on metrics in your new book, The Forever Transaction. What was the impetus behind that? And what are you doing to help people in the pandemic economy speed up that process of establishing their metrics and their baselines, when I know sometimes this could take months, if not years?
Yeah. So two great questions. Let's see. The first question is about why did I spend so much time on metrics? And I think it's because you need different metrics in a subscription model. And if you want to build a membership, if you want to be part of the membership economy, you can't just focus on acquisition of new customers. You have to think about your ongoing relationships. So you have to track engagement, recency, frequency, depth, breadth of usage, as well as retention or churn, which is very popular right now. And there's a bunch of other metrics as well that you need to keep track of: monthly, annual, ARR, annual recurring revenue, and monthly MRR recurring revenue. They're just different metrics, and you need to have them on your dashboard. And people ask me about them all the time. So I thought, the membership economy, my first book, was about why this model is so powerful. The Forever Transaction is about how to do it. And one of the steps in how to do it is, what are the metrics? What is my dashboard? So I just broke it down in this book. And then your second question was about, what are we doing to speed things up in the pandemic? And, what I've seen in the last 7 months is that because this crisis has forced both consumers and business people to adopt new habits, right? We can't go to the office anymore. We can't hop on a plane anymore with the same kind of casualness as we used to. So we have to find new ways to solve those problems in the business world, but also in our consumer life. I think I've told you, my mom is in her 70s. Almost every day she had this routine. She'd go to her yoga class. She'd stop at the grocery store to buy stuff for dinner that night with my dad. And then she'd do a social thing, usually like a book club or, a luncheon or something like that. Can't do any of those things anymore. And, she had never felt the need to get new habits because she had a solution that worked for her. But in the past 7 months, she has you'll appreciate this, she's made her bathroom into a Bikram studio. So she has she has an electric blanket on the floor underneath her mat. And then she has a space heater on the counter next to her laptop where she's streaming the class. And then she has the shower going, right? And
The
so she's doing her
shower?
Bikram. Yeah, for the steam. She's not in the shower, but the shower, she's in her bathroom doors closed, space heater's on, floor is warm from the blanket. She turns on the shower. The room gets really hot and steamy, like a Bikram class. And she live streams with her friends from her studio. And then she orders all of her food online. She has all of these different, subscriptions that she has to get her food delivered. And then she Zooms her book club and her other social events. So she's adopted 3 major new habits that she just never needed to overcome the friction to adopt those new habits before, because she had patterns already and solutions.
Wow.
So, we have this moment where people are adopting new habits. They're open to trying different ways of solving their problems and achieving their goals, which means we as business people have an opportunity to gain trial. People are more willing than ever to try new things.
Yes, I've noticed that too.
So this is it. This is the moment to try new things. Meanwhile, on the business side, a lot of people are going, oh man, I wish I had subscription revenue because it's much more resilient than episodic revenue. I need to put the gas on my subscription strategy, which has been languishing in a corner. So I'm seeing that as well, where they're like, let's figure this out. Let's put it out there. Let's get feedback. Let's iterate. Let's put more people on this and let's make it happen. So that's what I'm seeing in this time around subscriptions.
So our CMOs are sitting around their boardroom tables, or they're sitting down with their CEO and they're saying, look, we want to find some new areas of growth for the company. Here's a subscription model idea. How much time now, again, pandemic has accelerated things more than ever. We're much more like Formula One racers than we are horse racers, where every second that we can shave off in the pit could be the difference between winning and losing. So if I'm a CMO, how much time should I allocate to do a reasonably good business case for or against building a subscription business?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many different ways to think about this. But here's what I would say. So the first thing is you need to be experiment. So there's whenever you do experimentation, you need to start with your hypothesis or the question you're trying to answer. So sometimes that question is, how can I use subscription to make my business more successful? So that's a question to answer. A different question to answer is, how can I use subscriptions to achieve this specific goal? Or would subscriptions work to achieve this specific goal? That's a little further along, right? So you'd say, hey, we have a hypothesis that having a subscription for new customers would reduce some of the friction of, if you're not quite ready to buy a Porsche, maybe if you subscribe for $4,000 a month to access all of our Porsches, you can get an experience of what it's like. And then you might decide to buy one rather than just saying, go from never having driven one to owning one, or from a, 30-minute test drive to owning one. So think about the role of of where you want, why you want to have subscription, or why you want to move to this membership cultural mindset. Maybe you don't even want to have a subscription. And then I think sprinting, 12 weeks, boom, you spend 12 weeks, you come up with an answer, and then you go to the next question. And your goal is to get out there in the market. And I know that this is like preaching to the choir, but you want to get out into the market as quickly as possible and learn. So you're trying to figure out what is the right bounded experiment that I can use to answer some of my questions so that I can move to the next step.
I love that.
12-week chunks is how I think about it.
Your Silicon Valley is showing, Robbie, because you're singing my song around the agile mindset, the agile, not just agile development, but now it's become agile marketing and how we do things with sprints. So that's exciting. By the way, Drew from DC just had a question for us, Robbie.
Yeah.
Customer trust is earned every day in every interaction. It's so important for membership companies, especially in health. May I editorialize and riff for 1 minute? I recently became single, and I had to go out and buy health insurance. Okay. Which is probably akin to getting a root canal at this point, in my opinion. It's a pretty painful process to see how, the inner workings of the sausage making known as getting good insurance for your health. So anyway, this morning I thought to myself, why can't doctors or medical practices start to launch subscription models so I could pay my doctor or a group of doctors a subscription, a monthly fee to do preventive health measures in that particular specialty area, and just completely circumvent the damn insurance crap that we're witnessing out there.
Totally.
Pre-existing conditions. Oh, and then I discovered some stupidity called waiting periods. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but yes, you can have our insurance, but you can't use it for a year. Can you imagine telling a client that, Robbie? Oh, pay me $100,000.
You want to make sure you don't need it.
I could not believe this was happening. So I said, I'm going to ask you for advice on this. Do you think that the medical profession or the healthcare profession in general is ripe for subscription models?
Totally. In fact, in my book, thank you for leading right into that. In the Forever Transaction, in the last chapter where I talk about what's next, one of the top things that I think is next is the transformation of healthcare to be more member-centric.
Yes.
And there are some early good actors that I'm seeing. So for example, out here, Kaiser Health was really optimized around the idea that was revolutionary at the time. I think it's been around for, 75, 80 years now, but around the idea that everybody is better off if the patients don't get sick in the first place.
Thank you.
Right?
Duh.
That's the forever promise, right? That I want my doctor to have. It's not, Robbie, I will fix you really well whenever you break. It's, I will make sure you don't break, or, better yet, I will this is what I think every health professional should have as their mission. I will maximize the number of happy minutes you get in your life. That is my job. right? And if you think about it like that, right, it's better for everybody because you spend less time in the doctor's office, less time in the emergency room, less time in a hospital bed, and you're happy. And I would pay a premium if somebody said, and I believed them and they had the credibility that I could pay X dollars to have more minutes of happiness, I would just pay if I believed that they could do it. I mean, that is the promise that we want. And we're seeing a lot of organizations move towards that. Concierge medicine is very much built around that proposition that if you have a relationship with your doctor, you're likely to catch things earlier, to be sick less often, but most people can't afford it. So there's that. And then I have another client that I'm working with that's working on a, they always call them a health center, but they're really hospitals, right? Or a health system, but they're really hospitals for sick people. But a real health center that has a fitness studio and a cafe and socializing programs and, all the things that you would need, a meditation studio, yoga, so that you can actually maximize your health and having that attached to the hospital so that the things work in concert, right? What if your doctor knew about your sleep, your eating, your mindfulness, not just when you're sick, but just in general, to say, here's what you need to do to optimize your health.
I do. Wish we could take the brains of Dr. Andrew Weil, who I think coined the whole integrative health language, right? Much like you have coined the membership economy language and movement. I wish we could find those people and say, let's pay them a membership fee and just circumvent the insurers altogether and just do check-ins with them every 6 to 8 weeks. Can you imagine? And pay for online access, for telemedicine, for what's the latest in nutrition, what's the latest in psychedelic research, as we're seeing happening with Johns Hopkins University. I mean, if I had someone who was watching that for me, doing the blood, taking my blood tests and samples to make sure I'm nourished, making sure my sleep patterns are where they need to be.
So it is happening. I mean, because of course, this is an area of, I'm like you, I'm passionate about this. There's this concept of executive health, which I wasn't super familiar with, but my doctor, my regular primary care physician who I recently saw was telling me about this because he knows I'm a membership person. And he had the opportunity to take over the executive health practice at Stanford. Basically it's for rich people. And it allows, like, they're doing all those things that you just described. So you join this practice. Usually you're like a C-level executive, and they do they do thousands of tests on you, all kinds of tests. What's your best eating? What vitamins are you deficient in? What's your sleep patterns like? They do all this stuff. And then they give you an optimal health regime. And wouldn't it be great if that's what everybody got? Kind of like our president got a different experience when he had COVID than what the rest of us get. Often the best thing is reserved for the most powerful people. And one of the challenges for people like us is how do you scale that? And how do you bring that to everybody?
I know. I know that whole concierge business has been out there, and I look forward to the day that I could take advantage of it. And in the meantime, though, you did a long analysis in your latest book on the former Weight Watchers organization. Now, I'm going to ask you to do this, not off the record, obviously, but give us your real opinion on when you look at an older business like Weight Watchers trying to compete with MyFitnessPal or even some of the founder of Tom's is now in this market space as well, Blake McCoskey. Tell us, what are they up against, and how much do you think these business models could appeal to the masses in the future?
Yeah. Okay. So Weight Watchers has been around, 75 years, 100 years. My grandfather was the first male Weight Watchers group leader. And he passed away, 20 or so years ago. But so anyway, I love Weight Watchers. And of course, I was involved very early on with Kurbo, which is part of Weight Watchers now, which is weight loss for children. So just full disclosure, I think one of the challenges that many longtime organizations face is that competitors come into the market with the same forever promise, and they offer to do it in a newer way or a better way. So it's not that the promise isn't still valuable. Many of us are still struggling with our weight, but the issue is that, My Fitness Pal is free and Weight Watchers is not free. So a lot of people are like, well, the free thing, even I know it's not as good as Weight Watchers, but it's pretty good, and I'll just do that. So that's something that a lot of organizations face. Netflix, when they started, they were so different just because they had a subscription relationship for, a wide selection of video content. Their Forever Promise, which was, a broad selection of, professionally created video content delivered with cost certainty in the most efficient way possible. 15 years ago, that was revolutionary. Today, a lot of people provide that. So that last bit, in the most efficient way possible, is a lot harder. It's not always, they're not always the best way, the best ones. There's lots of solutions now. So I think that's one challenge that you face. And the other one that I think longstanding organizations face is that they're slow to iterate. You listen too much to your current members at the expense of tomorrow's members. So that's something that I would advise if you've been around for a long time with a subscription business, with a membership business, you're in the news business or the association world or the fitness world. That's a big risk, is listening too much to today's members and not enough to tomorrow's members.
That's something I could delve into for hours with you, because I had a similar conversation with the amazing Charlene Lee about this.
I know
And
Charlene.
how can we give marketing executives the courage to get out there and go spend out there, meaning on Zoom or in small outdoor meetings, socially distanced? What do marketers need to do to get the courage to go out there and do the work required to discover or listen to their future customers?
Oh, there's so many ways to do it. One of them is to say, this is a very fun experiment that you can do, is to say, imagine, whatever company, imagine that your best, most strategic mid-level manager left your company and they found a really sophisticated technologist, let's say an ex-Googler, an ex-Facebook person, an ex-LinkedIn person, whatever. And they found an investor with deep pockets and a long-term horizon. And they said, let's beat that company at their own game. Let's start from scratch and let's really deliver on the forever promise without the baggage of our legacy systems. And if you just did that experiment and you said to your middle managers, what would you do if you had a great technologist, unlimited budget, and you no longer worked here, but you were competing with us? You will get some great, then you start to be like, oh, now we're listening. And you start realizing we would go after the millennials, or we'd go after Gen Z, or we should have optimized, our offering, our global offering is not truly localized. We would localize in a couple of markets instead of trying to globalize everywhere.
Right.
And that's where, that's really, really powerful. It's also really important to look at your current customer base and say, which customers do we want to make more of? And a lot of times people start by saying, we'll make more of this 65-year-old white man who's been with us for 40 years. You're like, do you really want that? He's 65. He's going to probably stop being your customer in the next 10 years. Right. Or do you want, 3% of your current customer base is in their 20s and, from much more diverse backgrounds? Don't you want more of those? Right. And they're like, well, of course, but they're really hard to get. They don't like us.
Yes.
Why don't they like you? Right. And then you start getting into the interesting stuff. Ask them why their friends aren't joining. Ask people that look like them why they're not joining. Develop hypotheses. What are your best guesses? You probably know why they're not joining.
Yes.
And it's not because they're not joiners. It's not because they're not joiners. It's because they're just not that into you.
Yeah. Wait a minute. That'd be a great title for a movie. And let's cast one of my favorite actors, Matt McConaughey. Oh, damn. Somebody already did that. Okay. Speaking of cool guys, we have John from England joining us, Robbie. And
Hi, John.
so he sends his regards. John and I were in a similar mastermind group in the past. No, those are really good ideas. And I also want to advise people listening and watching that the best way to do this is not through some random survey monkey survey or focus group. People are tired of hearing this from me in our communities, in our CMO communities, but I say, please pick up the phone, please get in a Zoom room with somebody and just ask them these questions, right? I know they can be used for actual conversations, not just hiding behind a screen and in a survey instrument. I also have a question here from Bill. Bill wants to know, do you have any views on how a subscription model might work for an industrial manufacturing or wholesaling company versus a services company? Now, I don't know, Bill, thank you for that question. I'm not sure if Bill means a professional services company, like a consulting firm or an accounting firm. Maybe Bill could clarify that just a little bit more for us, but take it away, Robbie.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different, as you pointed out, a couple of different ways we can interpret this. So one of them is a wholesaling company. So the first thing is always know who your customer is. And people always ask me, when doesn't this work? Like, are there ever times, Robbie, where you would say, you don't need a member mindset? And the times when I would say that are when you truly have no competition, because you have a regulatory advantage, because you sell a commodity at a fixed price and can't add any services around it. You're the last gas for 100 miles. You have some kind of geography advantage. Those kinds of businesses don't necessarily have to build a relationship with the customer because the customer has no choice. So if you are selling wholesale to people who have no choice and you have a patented product, maybe this isn't for you. I don't know. But if you're just talking about B2B, or you're talking about durable goods or industrial products, it's exactly the same as what we've been talking about. So what is the promise you're making to your customers? Who are the customers? Which segments can you serve best? Who can you serve for a long time? Do you understand where they're trying to go and what brought them to you in the first place? And can you layer in more value on their journey? What is their journey? Where are you fitting in now? Maybe just a very small part, like the lip gloss example.
Right.
Maybe you're the, maybe you provide the, the ingredients or the, what's the word? The basic products that you use to build out whatever it is that you're building out, or you sell widgets.
Yeah. Or like a warehouse. Let's say that you help Amazon, AWS build out their technology infrastructure, and you provide the networking equipment.
Right. So you would say, why are they buying, like if you're a networking equipment company, you would say, well, why do they buy networking equipment? Well, because they want to be more connected, because they want to communicate with their customers, because they want to track their own supply chain. How do we help them more? Well, maybe we provide a dashboard. Maybe we take all the data we're collecting from all of our customers and provide analytical tools for benchmarking. So they know, like, for example, these are things that, for example, Caterpillar and a lot of other companies in the heavy equipment space are doing, where they're collecting data from sensors on their machines. And then they can tell you, like, oh, it's, when it's going to be really hot on Thursday, you should go out to, plow in field 27 because the ground will be, dry enough or moist enough to be optimized, or to help you figure out which workers should be on which projects on which days based on sense data and comparative data, benchmarking data.
Yeah.
Those are always, but all of this comes about when, instead of saying we make widgets or we make machines, it's saying we help people build towers, or we help people, grow vegetables. And how can we help them more?
Yes. That's a great way. And Bill, remember, you can always contact us afterwards if you have any follow-up questions or comments here, because I always go back. We do share the recordings. You can sign up for my newsletter, and we can send you links to where all the replays are available at no extra cost to you, no cost whatsoever. And then, we'll make sure that Robbie follows up with you Oh, Bill said very good. He's happy. Thank you. You're welcome, Bill. Bill, by the way, you got to tell us where you're from. I can't remember. I know Bill, but when I have, like you, many thousands of followers now, so I don't always remember where everyone lives. Robbie, do you have time for one more question from our community?
Sure. Yeah,
We
absolutely.
have Andy from New Jersey. Andy, welcome to your Weight Watchers example. Unique content and access could be the powerful differentiator. For instance, leveraging their celebrity relationships with Oprah to create something
Oprah.
unique that a competitor would find hard to replicate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is such a great idea. So much of weight loss is about, well, 80% of weight loss is tracking your food. That's a hashtag pro tip for anybody who's trying to lose a few pounds. Write it down, and that takes you a long way. But for a lot of people, the motivation to keep writing it down comes from other people on the same journey. And especially if there's somebody that you admire who's on that journey with you, like an Oprah, that makes it feel more normal to be on that journey. That's very, very sticky. Community is it's much stickier than like product features or even content. So yeah, I totally agree that Weight Watchers has, they first have a unique methodology. They have lots of proof and evidence that it works. They have incredibly engaged ambassadors who are the people who've achieved their goal weight and are now in maintenance. And they have Oprah. I mean, they have Oprah. Awesome.
Yeah. Any questions? I mean, yes, the content. And if Oprah continues to be an avatar for how you can live a healthier lifestyle and manage your weight through better eating, if she can do it, then we can do it.
Yeah.
I was stuffing my face with pita chips and guacamole before the session today because I had one of those low energy dips and I said, okay, I need to eat something. Andy, we hope that answered your question. And yes, and Andy comes back and says, I agree about the stickiness of community. A short plug here. I am going to be launching a new online course with Knowable very soon on the power of community, because now that I've put, as you all know, I have private CMO peer communities, and I've just finished my 9th year of learning how to design, grow, and cultivate these amazing people, including Andy. And it has been such a joy. So my first course about building powerful communities will be coming out this year on Knowable. So if anyone is interested, it's knowable.fyi. So with that, oh, and by the way, Bill is covering the other part of the US for us. He's out in Bend, Oregon, one of my old favorite places to live many moons ago. So we're so
Did you live in Bend? I thought you were in Portland.
No, I lived in Bend, Oregon, which is Central Oregon, in a town right outside of it called Sun River.
Oh, beautiful.
Full-time population, 4,000 people. So a little different than.
Beautiful place.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So I know, here's the news. We ran a little bit over today. So we had a lot, as usual, way too much fun. And this is it's a big topic worthy of not just 2 books, but you also have a podcast. Tell us about your podcast, and then we're going to wrap it up, Robbie.
Yeah. So I have a podcast. If you're thinking about subscriptions, you'll love this podcast. It's called Subscription Stories, True Tales from the Trenches. And it features subscription practitioners sharing what worked and didn't work on their journeys. And so I'm just wrapping up the first season. I have guests from Weight Watchers, from Inspirato, Exclusive Resorts, Hewlett Packard, A&E Networks, Electronic Arts, as well as several startups and several academics that research this space in depth. So if you're interested, I'll put it in the comments, and I'd love for you to take a listen. And if you like it, don't be afraid to write a review.
Yes, I've already listened to a few of them. They're excellent. And I also put this on your screen here, Robbie, so they know how to search for it on their favorite podcast platform, whether that be
Great.
Stitcher or Apple iTunes or wherever podcasts are available. What did I forget to ask you today, Robbie?
Oh, I think you did a great job. We covered a ton.
I think so too. And subscription businesses are here to stay if your company is committed to making the forever promise that we talked about. This is not for the people looking for a quick hit. If you're looking for
No.
quick revenue or closing a deal and getting it all done in a quarter, do not do this. That's my takeaway. This is about, it's just kind of like, finding a partner in life. If you're looking for a series of one night
Totally.
stands, it's probably not for you.
Well, it's funny because I'm glad you mentioned that because, the metaphor of a wedding and a marriage and a relationship is very applicable to the world of subscription. Just like in real life, the wedding is not the finish line. It's the starting line for a whole new journey. And it's not like, great, I'm married. Now I can just relax and not do any work. Right? I mean, we know, and that's the same. Getting someone to subscribe is the starting line. That moment of transaction is the starting line for the relationship, not the finish line, for better or worse, to quote another wedding.
Yes, I was going to say we're on that trail now. Yeah, it's definitely the case. And one of the things I also want to do is say that we have a fantastic follow on to this live stream on November 6th with guess who? Lisa Earle McLeod, who understands, she, with her background, she understands how to marry purpose with company profitability. So we've been talking here a lot about revenue and profitability and how to get there with a long-term lens, and she brings together purpose. So I want to make sure everyone joins us again on November 6th to kind of continue this conversation. Robbie, thank you so much for being with us today. This was terrific, as always.
Great to see you, Lisa.
Oh, it's great to see you. And we'll have you come back again soon and share some of your tales from the world of subscriptions. So thanks for being here. So folks, this wraps up my October sessions. I hope you found these today as valuable and as joyful and also pragmatic as I did. Join us again on November 6th with Lisa Earle McLeod, talking with us about profits and purpose in a pandemic economy. Now say that 3 times fast. Anyway, I really appreciate your being here. Make sure you go to my website, lisanorell.com/events. In case you've missed the last 18 or 19 live streams that we've been able to host through the graces of Facebook, LinkedIn Live, and YouTube. As always, it's great to see you. Stay healthy, stay sane, and stay mindful. Thank you.